In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something that I feel a lot of people miss when it comes to optimizing their health and well-being, their energy levels, their mood, and something that I actually overlooked as well for a very long time. And it has taken me years to get to the point of realizing how important the way that we eat and what we eat plays a role on how we actually feel and also our confidence and how comfortable we feel in our body. Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of the Transform with MG podcast. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Martina Good. As a health and wellness coach, I've first-hand experience on how powerful dietary changes can be for our hormone health. A few years ago, I really struggled to regulate my menstrual cycle. If you have listened to my previous solo episode, I shared my story with hypothalamic amenorrhea, where my period went MIA for 5 years, but also with constant energy dips, constant mood swings, breakouts, and fatigue. Despite trying various treatments, it wasn't until I adjusted my diet that I seen tremendous changes. By incorporating more whole foods, incorporating lean proteins, healthy fats, and minimizing processed foods, my symptoms drastically improved. In the early days of my fitness and health journey, my eating habits were purely supporting a body composition goal, not my health as such. And don't get me wrong, while both of them can definitely intertwine, say for example, if you are getting into your health and fitness journey because you want to lose weight, then more than likely you're going to start to engage in healthier habits such as exercising more, balancing out your meals, perhaps eating more protein, being more aware of what foods you consume and the calorie content. So there is definitely benefits in terms of that, but where it can get problematic, which it did for me, is when I was solely focused on the way I looked, and what and how I was eating was to support being in a smaller body, which meant that I was missing out on a lot of key nutrients, on adequate amount of proteins, and what and how I was eating wasn't necessarily supporting my hormone health. Because I was so hyper-focused on how I looked, I always seeked the best diet, and I jumped on any new trendy diet that I was going. I tried every diet under the sun, you name it, intermittent fasting, keto, low carb, swapping out my breakfast for celery juice or apple cider vinegar. I don't know if you remember that phase where apple cider vinegar was honestly so trendy and people believed it to be magic liquid and that it's just going to help you suppress your appetite and make you eat smaller. But I've honestly eaten less than 1,000 calories for prolonged periods of time and almost always opted for low calorie, low fat, and low carb food substitutes because I was on so little calories that I wanted to maximize the most out of my diet. So of course, choosing foods that were the lower calorie option foods were the most appealing to me because it meant I could eat a higher volume of those foods. But I was underfed and undernourished. As I began working on my hormone health, I had to make distinct changes to my diet. And I really didn't understand the role that hormones have to play in the way we feel and our energy levels and our vitality. But hormones honestly control every process of our body. And if you're not really sure of the role of hormones, maybe think of it in this analogy. Say that your body is like a busy city, like New York, for example. In the city, there's different buildings, such as hospitals, factories, schools. And there has to be a very clear message delivered between each of those buildings. When everything in your body is working optimally, that message is delivered without any issues. But say, for example, that there's roadblocks, though, and there's an incident that disturbs the messenger delivering the message from one building to the other, then there is problems that start to occur. For example, if there has been a kid that had an incident in school and needs to be transported to the hospital, but there has been roadblocks that meant that the road has been closed off, then that's going to have implication on the kid getting the treatment that it needs. And the same applies to our hormones. Essentially, hormones are these chemical messengers, and they deliver a message from one organ to another. And if we don't support those hormones through our diet and lifestyle, then we're going to feel the effects of it. So hormones play a role in many functions. We have over 50 hormones in our body operating at the same time, and they have a vital role in metabolism, mood, energy levels, and reproductive health. So what you eat can significantly impact the balance and functions of those hormones. And by focusing on nutrient-dense, balanced diet, you can stabilize your blood sugar, you can support your gut health, provide essential nutrients, reduce inflammation, and enhance overall well-being. When it comes to supporting your hormones through diet, there is no one size fits all. Everyone is bio-individual, and they're going to have different needs and nutrients that their body requires. And also there are hormonal conditions like PMS, PCOS, endometriosis that will require a more specific approach, which can also be delivered through diet to deal with those symptoms associated with them. But in this episode, I really just want to give you not so much like a blanket statement, but I do believe there are a set of principles that anyone listening can apply. And whether you are struggling with any hormonal imbalances, whether that's with your reproductive health, you have missing periods, irregular periods, heavy periods, or the common hormonal imbalances like PCOS or endo, or whether you simply want to take a preventative route and optimize your hormone health as best as you can so that you can feel at your best. You can honestly thrive, not just survive. Because if you know that you're not feeling at your best for half of the month, then there's something to do about it. And I know that a lot of symptoms have been normalized, but just because something is common doesn't mean it's normal. So I am going to give you a set of principles which I myself follow, which really has helped me in terms of regulating my own menstrual cycle, in terms of increasing my energy levels, stabilizing my blood sugar, stabilizing my mood, and which I believe that you can also apply to live a higher quality of life. So the first diet principle when it comes to supporting your hormone health is to eat regular meals. I know this sounds so simple, but there is still people that claim they just don't have the time to eat. And I'm not disregarding that. I know everyone has different priorities and different commitments, and actually making the time to create a balanced meal and sit down and eat it and remember to be eating regularly throughout the day might be challenging. I understand that I'm in a position where I'm single, I don't have kids, and I have full autonomy over my schedule, and not everyone has that. They have family, they have their kids, or maybe elderly people that they have to look after. They might be a shift worker working long hours, and they don't dictate at which time they take a break. But I can't stress enough how regularity in the way you eat plays a role on your hormone health. Because if you're somebody that goes about their day just skipping meals, then you are throwing your blood sugar completely out of whack. Because if there's a period of time that you don't eat, your blood sugar drops so low that it impacts both your energy and your mood. But then when you do get a chance to eat, your blood sugar spikes so high, and whatever goes up has to go down. And this is why you're experiencing these energy dips. And when your energy dips too low, then we start to crave sugar, junk food, refined carbs, something to just give us a quick dopamine release. A few years ago, I definitely didn't have a structure to my eating, and mainly because I was just trying to jump from like a diet to diet. And as I said at the beginning of this episode, I tried every diet under the sun, and one of them was intermittent fasting. So I would go hours before having my first meal. I'm an early person, and I like to get up quite early, about 6 a.m. or so. And when I was doing intermittent fasting, I wouldn't be having my meal until 1 p.m. And usually my high energy, high demanding tasks would have been in the morning, including my training as well. So I would go 6 hours since I've been awake without having a meal. And then oftentimes I would make those excuses that I just don't have time, I got busy with something. But the reality was that I probably just wasn't prepared. And also I lacked the knowledge in how I should structure my meals. for them to be convenient, quick. Don't add extra tasks onto my plate because I was busy, and I'm sure like you are too. Everyone is now. So a core change I made to my diet is to ensure that I do eat regularly and make it my mission to actually eat every 3 to 4 hours to keep my blood sugar stable and not allow myself to get too hungry and then throw my blood sugar out of whack. So I ensure that I have 3 main meals and 1 to 2 snacks. So that works pretty well in terms of fitting something to eat, in terms of fitting a meal every 3 to 4 hours. Usually my eating schedule would look like get up in the morning, have my breakfast. Sometimes I would have a mid-morning snack around 11. Then I would have my lunch between 1 and 2. I have a mid-afternoon snack between 3 and 4. And then I have my dinner between 6 and 7. And structuring my eating routine that way not only had helped me regulate my hormones, but it also prevented me from overeating and then binging out, which is something I really struggled with when I was in the deeps of like my dieting phases, because oftentimes I would just simply not eat enough during the day, and it would get to the end of the day where I had a little bit more time, you know, after work was a little bit more chilled, and I'd just like sit on the couch or get into bed to like watch Netflix, and I couldn't stop myself from eating. I just had this urge to eat, and it was getting so out of control. But by eating regularly, I was fueling my body with the food and the nutrients that it needs throughout the day, which meant that when it got to the end of the day, my body was not craving like sugary and junk food, first of all, but it just wasn't even craving more food. Like, I ate my dinner and I was satisfied with it. Of course, there was times where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm craving a dessert, I'm gonna have it, but it wasn't coming from a place of I need it right now, but more so, okay, I'm gonna have it and I'm gonna enjoy it. So not only did it help me to like regulate those hormones and support my reproductive health, my menstrual cycle, but it had also meant that I had better control over food. It improved my relationship with food and helped with weight management. So if you currently don't have a structure to your eating, this is the first thing that I would recommend you do, and make it really simple. Just think of having 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'll just give you an example of when I have them, but like that be dependent on your own schedule. And then you can throw in 1 to 2 snacks. I find the period between lunch and dinner to be quite a sticky one, where it might be a bit long to go between like eating your lunch at like 12 or 1 and then your dinner at 7. So having a snack in between them, and if you can make it more substantial than just like a chocolate bar, but having a protein yogurt, for example, and adding some dark chocolate chips into it, maybe a handful of blueberries, that is going to keep you full and satiated then come dinner times. The second thing that I have done in terms of dietary changes to support my hormone health is to start the day with a high protein breakfast. One of the trends that I tried when I was hyper focused on losing weight and being the smallest person possible was intermittent fasting. And I feel like now it's making a comeback. There's a lot of talk about it. Even celebrities like Kourtney Kardashian are hyping it up. But what's so magical about it? So if you've never heard of intermittent fasting, it's basically where you're restricting your eating window. So you're only allowed to eat within a certain eating window, and then you are refraining from eating any food and drinking anything that contains calories. The most popular one, although there are a few different ones, but the most popular one and the one that most people engage in is the 16-8. Actually, it's the one that I've tried, like I said, a couple of years ago when I seen the whole hype about it. And basically how it works is that you fast for 16 hours and then you eat for 8 hours. So for me, that looked like fasting until noon. Usually would break my fast at around 12 or 1, and then I would eat right up to about 7 or 8 p.m. I feel, first of all, that a lot of people just do intermittent fasting wrong. because they think it's just about skipping breakfast and they don't replenish the amount of calories that the body needs within the eating window that they have. So that becomes hugely problematic because, I mean, if they're eating for weight loss and they are cutting out a substantial amount of calories and putting themselves in a deficit, well, then they are going to lose weight. Because if you're in a deficit, you're consuming less calories than you're burning, then the law of thermodynamics dictates that you're going to lose weight. I'm not going against science, but it fucks a lot of people up because they don't actually eat enough. Even if they want to lose weight, they put themselves in a very severe calorie restriction. And what happens then is that it messes up with the relationship with their food. They tend to then overeat and binge and then feel like a failure because they couldn't sustain this diet. So on one side, I feel like even when people do try intermittent fasting, it's done wrong and they haven't done a lot of research. They just jumped on the bandwagon like I did, you know. So I'm not actually judging anyone that done it and found that it just wasn't really for them. Or maybe, you know, you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm doing it now and it's working for me. Well, it initially worked for me too. I lost a lot of weight because for that reason, I was just putting myself in this severe calorie deficit. So there's nothing magical about intermittent fasting and skipping my breakfast, apart from the fact that I was just in a calorie restriction, which can be achieved in other ways. There's nothing wrong with losing weight, by the way. Like, if you have that goal and you want to do it for whatever reason, especially if it's health reasons and you are maybe overweight or obese and you need to lose it to feel better, that's absolutely fine. But there's other ways that you can do it. So where my problem lies with intermittent fasting is that, especially for women, you know, because let's just take one view of it all, how it impacts women, not men, because there are studies to prove that intermittent fasting is beneficial in helping people lose body fat, but more so from like the cognitive standpoint, being more sharp, more focused, improving memory, decreasing inflammation. But most of these studies, you have to understand, were done on men who don't go through monthly hormonal fluctuations, and they reset their hormone levels, their testosterone levels every 24 hours. So fasting doesn't have much of a negative impact on them. Again, if they're going to put themselves in an extreme calorie deficit that they cannot sustain and it's going to end up leading to overeating, where it's not ideal. But where the problem lies, and I think that it's very detrimental to women, is how much stress it puts on the female body. Stress increases the stress hormone cortisol. And while cortisol isn't all that bad, we get a surge of cortisol in the morning and it helps us to get out of bed. It also increases our motivation to get our tasks done. It's important to have adequate levels of cortisol as well. Cortisol works in a seesaw. You want a balance, because going too low on cortisol, it's not good either, because you're going to find that you're just demotivated to do any task in the day and very fatigued all the time. But what happens with intermittent fasting is fasting puts stress on the body. Calorie restriction puts stress on the body. So when we wake up and the cortisol is high, and then we decide to fast for even longer than the hours that we were fasting for when we were asleep, or cortisol increases. What also happens, what happened in my situation, and I feel like it's very common in women, like, you know, they get up, they want to have their coffee, they also want to train in the morning before the day starts, especially when you have a busy schedule. A lot of people want to get their workout in before their work day starts or whatnot. Your cortisol, aka your stress hormone, right? It's already increased. Then you're fasting, increasing that cortisol even more. Having a coffee, which is a stimulant, increases your stress levels even more. And if you pair exercise on top of that, especially high intensity exercise is a stressor. And when you can manage high intensity exercise with adequate recovery, then that stressor is actually very beneficial. It leads to strength and muscle gain adaptations or fitness adaptations. But when it's not, you have this concoction of things that are literally throwing your cortisol out of whack. And then you get to the point where you have chronically elevated cortisol and you start to struggle with losing weight or managing like a healthy weight, in terms of having a lot of stubborn fat that just doesn't want to go, because our body is prioritizing survival. It's not prioritizing your body composition goals, and it's going to mess with your reproductive system. So then you start noticing like period problems, increased PMS such as bloating, acne, cramps, bloating, potentially missing periods, irregular periods, because it's going to shut off ovulation. You notice yourself just being constantly tired, having mood swings. So it has a very detrimental effect on your body. And this is why I feel like one of the principles that can apply to anyone, no matter if you are struggling with hormonal issues or not, is having a power breakfast, because it really sets you up on for the day, and it contributes to a healthy cortisol level, because we're taking ourselves out of that fast. And then when we decide to have like a coffee after it, that stimulating effect of the coffee is not as strong on our hormone levels. But another thing that having a power breakfast early on in the day helps is actually managing our hunger and satiety signals, okay? Because we are not going so long without eating, which I mentioned in my previous point, that we're dropping our blood sugar so low that when we do decide to then eat something, that blood sugar just like skyrockets, and then it dips, and then we're finding that our energy is all over the place. And I can't stress this enough, like having a breakfast early in the morning, first thing in the morning, to start off my day, has been just like transformative in terms of like how I can manage my control over food. And I know it's like the first thing that I do with my clients is look at their breakfast. There's so many women who either don't eat breakfast or label having their coffee as breakfast. So basically you want to start the day within the first like 30 to 60 minutes that you wake up, having a breakfast that is high protein and high nutrient dense and has healthy fats. Having that combination is really going to set you up, give you energy levels. It's going to give you nutrients and fuel that you need to feel at your best. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but Martina, I just do not have an appetite in the morning. Well, first of all, not having an appetite in the morning can come from a number of things. One being that perhaps your liver function is not working optimally, and it's not doing its job. So because you should be hungry waking up in the morning, so it could be a sign of a potential hormonal imbalance. But on the flip side, it could be habitual. If you were our bodies are so smart and they love a routine, and if you taught your body not to eat in the morning, then of course you're not going to wake up hungry. Another thing is, if you're somebody that's eating late at night and you have a big meal, or you end up snacking right before bed, you're not going to wake up hungry. So some of the changes that you can make if you're somebody that's either doing intermittent fasting, or you're saying that you don't really have time to eat breakfast, or perhaps you don't have an appetite in the morning, is basically, one, follow the step that I told you to have regular meals, because when you have those regular meals, you're going to be more in control of your hunger and satiety cues. Second thing is to start small. It doesn't have to be a full-on breakfast platter that you're having. It can be something as small as full-fat Greek yogurt, handful of berries thrown in there, and then you have protein, you have fats, and you have nutrients. And starting with something simple as that is already putting you at an advantage over not having anything at all. Or even preparing like a breakfast smoothie, you can just throw some fresh or frozen berries and add a scoop of whey protein or vegan protein, depending of whether you're vegan or you consume dairy. Blend that up with either some milk or some water, and there you go. There you have it. Throwing in even some chia seeds as well for healthy fats. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then lastly, I would give yourself an end time to when you start eating, to when you stop eating the night before. So having a cut-off time when you have like your dinner and like your dessert is really going to help in sparking that appetite then the following morning. But another thing that it's going to help with is sleep, which is, we're not going to go into lifestyle habits here. I'm probably going to do another episode on sleep alone because it's crucial to balancing hormones. But if you're eating late at night, you're going to be digesting that food, right? And the process of digestion is going to keep you awake, and you're going to really struggle to fall asleep. And then if you're struggling to fall asleep, then that means you're not getting adequate amount of sleep, or possibly the quality of your sleep isn't that great. And then that is going to have an impact on your hunger and satiety in the following day. So you're more than likely to have cravings and opt for junk food, processed food, because that's kind of what your body is craving. But your hunger and satiety is also going to be a little out of whack. So it's not going to be telling your body to eat when it's hungry and only when it's hungry, but basically you would want to eat all the time. And you might recall this, that when you had just like an awful night of sleep, you found yourself eating a lot more the following day, or choosing more of not so nutrient dense options. So these are some of my tips on how you can incorporate a power breakfast into your day. The third principle is to rock a steady blood sugar by eating balanced meals. What is a balanced meal and why is it important? So when it comes to creating a balanced meal, you want to think of having a portion of protein, a portion of carbs, healthy fats, and fiber. Okay, and if you think about creating that plate, how does that might look in practice? So for example, we want to start off with protein. And why protein? Because it's the most satiating, first of all. So you're going to get the most out of your meal by including some protein in it. But it also is essential. There are essential amino acids which the body cannot make itself. And by essential, I mean that we have to get it through food because we need it for survival. And protein plays an enormous role in building and maintaining muscle, in recovery, but it's also vital for healthy skin, hair, and nails. So it plays a very important role. And as women, we definitely don't get enough protein. You don't just hit your protein goals unintentionally. There has to be some planning involved. And yeah, initially it might take some work, but it's really worth it if you care about your health, longevity, body composition. So we're going to start off with protein. And for example, you might include a chicken breast, a salmon fillet, steak, eggs, Greek yogurt. So here are some just examples of high quality proteins. But let's just take one for example, because I'm going to help you build out a balanced meal here now on the podcast. Okay, so we're going to start off with, for example, a chicken breast. Then we're going to move on to, and that's going to be either like a palm sized portion, or you want to, if you are looking at a plate, you want to divide it into half of the plate is going to be filled with your fiber, your veggies or fruit, and then a quarter of it is going to be your protein. The other quarter is going to be your complex carbs, and then you want a thumb-sized portion of healthy fats as well. So you're going to start off with that protein. For example, we're going to have a chicken breast. Then you're going to move on and fill half of your plate with fiber, with your veggies. You want to think of broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, peppers, onions, whatever you like. And if you're not looking from it from a plate perspective, you want to think to have at least 2 fist sizes of veggies with that meal. The fiber is going to help you stay fuller for longer, but it's also going to support your gut health and bowel movement. So if you're struggling with bloating or constipation, diarrhea, any digestive issues or indigestion, including more fiber in your diet is hugely beneficial, and thereby it's supporting your hormone health and also your female health, because you cannot have balanced hormones if your gut is not healthy. So addressing your gut issues is important, which we're not going to get into this episode. I'm giving you like an overview of healthy diet for supporting hormones as such, because we can definitely go into like rabbit holes, but that would mean this podcast episode would be 3 hours long. So then we're going to fill half the plate with veggies, and then you want some complex carbs. So when it comes to carbs, not all carbs are created equally. We have complex carbs, and then we also have simple carbs. The complex carbs are slow digesting carbs, and they don't release sugar into the bloodstream at such a fast rate compared to simple carbs. So complex carbs includes your whole grains, your brown rice, brown pasta, quinoa, buckwheat, oats, sourdough, and then you have your simple carbs, which are more your refined carbs like white bread, white rice, white pasta, cupcakes, pastries. And we're not eliminating any food here or demonizing any food, but those complex carbs allow you to keep your blood sugar more stable, and they also provide fiber as well, which is going to keep you fuller for longer. Okay, so we want a quarter of a plate or a cupped size portion of those complex carbs. And then you want to think of healthy fats. So we also have essential fatty acid, which means we need to get some healthy fats through our diet because our body cannot make it ourselves. And fats, while they have been demonized by social media and they've been deemed to be the bad guys and that they lead to fat, fats do not make you fat, okay? I'm going to repeat that again because I feel like a lot of people need to get this message drilled into their head. Fats do not make you fat. They are essential for us. So we want to include healthy fats. And just like with carbs, not all fats are created equal. And the healthy fats that you want to think of are things like your avocados, your nuts, your seeds, olive oil, coconut oil. So having like a thumb-sized portion with your meal is going to add to your satiety levels again because fats slow down digestion, but it will also ensure a healthy hormone balance. We need those fats to produce adequate amount of hormones needed so we feel at our best. And this is how you create a balanced meal. If you think of having 3 of those balanced meals per day for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, let's say, you'd be already doing so amazing and really supporting your hormone health. Okay, so if you think of 3 of those meals every single day, by structuring them in the way that you have a serving of protein, a serving of complex carbs, 2 to 3 servings of veggies, and then a serving of healthy fats. And why is that important? Because think about the last time that you had a pasta dish with nothing else really other than the pasta and some sauce, whatever you use. Did you find yourself being in a bit of a food coma or feeling low on energy, or 2 hours later you're just craving sweets or sugary foods, salty foods? And this is because you're eating simple carbs on its own. You're not combining macronutrients together, which means that it's spiking up your blood sugar levels. And then again, we're going back to how blood sugar works. What goes up has to go down. By adding protein and by adding healthy fats to your carbs, you're slowing down that digestion and you're also increasing your fullness and satiety levels. So it's a win-win. My 4th point on supporting healthy hormone balance is to crowd out ultra processed foods. So the closer that you can get to eating a food that has come from its natural source and it has less ingredients, the healthier it's going to be. Nowadays, there is so much convenient food that have been highly processed, and usually when it's highly processed, it's also highly palatable. What that means is that when we eat it, we want even more. So think of your Oreos, Maltesers, Pringles, Pop-Tarts. When do you ever have one and you're satiated and satisfied with it? I know that does not happen to me. When I have 1 or 2 Oreos, I feel like eating the whole packet. And this is where high palatability, why is this word so hard to say, comes into play, right? It's just designed to make us want more of that food. And that's how food companies make their money. They invest so much into research on how to trigger our taste palates in a way that we want more. It's even down to the structure. So things that have a crunch and a soft bit inside, like a cheesecake or Oreos, are ones that we just want to eat and eat and eat more. Okay, so the closer that you can get to choosing foods that come from the real source, then it's going to be easier to stick to a healthier diet. Because oftentimes we blame our willpower for not having the control over food, whereas we are not the ones to blame. And you will find yourself that when you choose foods that are whole, nutrient dense majority of the time, you're going to feel better in yourself, but you're also going to have better control of your diet. And I don't want you to get so dogmatic about this and be over focused on just eating healthy, because I don't believe that obsession is healthy either, when you're not allowing yourself to have any processed foods. And the rule that I like to use for myself but also for my clients is the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're choosing whole nutrient-dense foods that look like they came from their natural source, your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains. And then 20% of the time you just eat whatever you want, because food is not only fuel. It's also there for enjoyment, for celebration. It's there to fuel our soul and the taste of it, the texture, and the cultural aspect, how it bonds us with our friends and family. And we don't want to disregard that either. So don't overanalyze food, and definitely don't put it into categories or good and bad. But aiming to have less ultra processed foods. So if you think about it, going into a supermarket, if you pick up a food and it has a list of ingredients so freaking long and half of them you can't even pronounce, then that's an indicator that it has been ultra processed. But everything in moderation, and finding the balance is so key, because you are then supporting your health, your hormones, but also not sucking enjoyment out of your life. And the last principle for supporting your hormone health is to hydrate wisely. 60% of our body is made up of water, yet many of us still neglect actually staying hydrated. It's an important aspect, because even the mild dehydration can give us headaches, fatigue, and then make us choose food options that aren't really aligned with our goals. We often mistake being hungry for actually being thirsty. So a good rule of thumb, like a general rule of thumb, is to drink 2 to 3 liters of water or like fluids per day. And fluids don't necessarily have to come from just plain water, because like choosing fruit and vegetables that are high in water content, such as cucumbers or watermelons, can also be great additions to your diet. And sometimes we can just forget about drinking water. We get busy, we're out and about, we don't have a water bottle. But like, one tip that I would suggest in terms of keeping on top of your hydration is to buy yourself a pretty water bottle. And when you have a pretty water bottle, you just want to carry it around, you have it at your desk, and remember to just refill it. A lot of places now have water fountains, colleges, schools, workplaces, even airports. So there's no excuse really. And if you are out and about, just pick up a big 2-liter water bottle and carry it with you and sip on it throughout the day. Because if you have access to that water, you're more than likely going to drink it. And if you're not a big fan of plain water, that is okay. I'm not a big fan of just drinking water alone. So some of my tips for that is, even if you get diluted juice, something like my wadi, and add a little bit to it, that's absolutely fine. Don't stress about it. I think people freak out and wonder, is it okay to drink those concentrated juices? Adding literally a shot of it into your water is not going to have a huge impact on your health. Like, do not stress about it. If you're not even doing the 4 points that I've talked about, but you're stressing about a shot of dilutant in your water, look, you're focusing on the wrong things, okay? So you can add that. You can also add fresh fruit. Like, one of my favorite things is to have like lemon and mint in water, like diffused water. So good. When you go to a spa, or maybe you go to some like restaurants or cafes, sometimes they give you diffused water. Doesn't it just taste so much better? To me, it does anyway. So yeah, you have some options, and also sipping on herbal teas as well. Ginger tea, peppermint tea, they're all so great in keeping you hydrated. So we have the 5 principles that you can apply to structure your diet to support your health and your hormones. So we talked about eating regularly, starting your day with a power breakfast, eating balanced meals, crowding out ultra processed foods, and staying hydrated. Maybe you're listening to this and you're already doing majority of it, and that's absolutely terrific. I'm so happy for you. Maybe you've just picked up on some points that you haven't been and you want to tweak to optimize it. This is fantastic as well. Or maybe you're listening to it and you're not doing any of them, and you've been feeling overwhelmed and lost in terms of structuring your diet to your health, and that's absolutely fine. One thing that I will say is don't try to change everything at once, because you're going to feel even more overwhelmed, and that is likely to lead to failure and to you giving up on making those dietary changes to support your well-being. Pick one of those points that I mentioned. Make sure that you master it, you get familiar with it, you build consistency, and then add in another point, and so on and so on. And over time, those small habits are really going to compound. I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate if you left a like, a comment, and you subscribed at whatever platform you're listening to. And I shall see you in the next episode.